An emergency broadcast this morning. Today is October 4th, 2023. This is your host, the Fullerton Informer, PO Box 4121, Fullerton, California 92834. On the web at thefullertoninformer.com, 5gdangers.com, vaxdangers.com, and celltowerdangers.com, wifidangers.com, many other .coms, folks. I want to talk to you today about an urgent message to all my listeners, and about the nanolipid 5G cell tower activation fraud. All right, folks, I want to tell you something, all right? There's a bunch of circus clowns out there telling you that there's going to be some sort of a nanolipid raft payload activation from the cell tower signals today. Bunch of nonsense. Okay, there's a group of people making the rounds. They always reinvent the circus clowns, folks. And together, there's a common denominator. There's a common thread. There's a common bond between these people. All right, and I don't want you to be freaked out about what's going to happen today. Because what's going to happen today is exactly what they're telling you is going to happen. They are going to test the emergency broadcast system. And no, it's not to activate some fake virus hidden in a payload in a vaccine that people were given, all right? That is fairy tale science fiction, literal absolute bullshit. And excuse the language, but I've got to use the language in this case. I want to try to break this down so you have a clearer understanding of what's going on. The United States is a corporation that is controlled by the deniers of Jesus Christ through the Federal Reserve magical printing press. And every aspect of our government and the upper levels of corporations, the legal system, the judicial system, the legislative branches, the executive branch of our government is all controlled, okay? The emergency alert system is going to be utilized to broadcast messages in the future that will be telling you that the aliens have arrived, or that an alien virus is unleashed, or there's this new hemorrhagic outbreak that is going to be utilized to bring in the next phase of lockdowns or panic or control or digital currency activation. Whatever agenda they see fit has to be accomplished through a massive communications system that is tightly controlled and all working on the same page, okay? And they've gotten it just about ready. They've gotten cell phones in the hands of even the homeless people now. I mean, you could be indigent on the streets with a syringe in your arm, and there'll be somebody walking up to you offering you a free cell phone. I'm not kidding. All right, they got these booths everywhere. So for many, many years, they had 5 or 6 network television stations that had licenses from the FCC that controlled information, and they worked alongside with the newspapers and the magazines and the radio stations, all controlled by the deniers of Jesus Christ, all working in unison to an extent. Now, they gave you a conservative flavor, a liberal flavor, a libertarian flavor. They gave you the Communist Party flavor. They gave you the John Birch Society flavor. They gave you the Ronald Reagan flavor. They gave you the John Wayne flavor, but at the end of the day, when you suck on the lollipop of the lies long enough, you're still going to come to a wooden stick, and that stick is the one they're going to shove up your backside one of these days, all right? So today is nothing more than a test of the emergency broadcast system. So they can get every screen anywhere, whether it's at a gas station pump, in your bathroom on the wall, and a cell phone in your hand, or at your school. It's going to beep and make noises and tell you that this is a test, because they want to be able to alert everyone in the United States at the same time with the same exact information and run the same story and run the same tagline. Whether it's an alien virus or a hemorrhagic Ebola outbreak or whatever other agenda they're going to run, they've got to have a platform that works synergistically with the narrative. Okay? Do you understand me? Now, let's talk a little bit about science here, and not the scientism religion, but common sense, all right? Do I have your attention? All right. So there's this guy going around talking about how there's this so-called payload activation that's going to take place with these frequencies, all right? Let me speak to the nanolipid raft payload crap, okay? Folks, they've got technology that can do many things. Now, I was at the thrift store the other day and I saw this really neat gadget. It was in a box, and it was a combination of a television set and a National Weather Service emergency radio, right? You know, the weather band, 162.55 megahertz. The National Weather Service operates these weather channels with tornado warnings and things like that. Well, this thing had a little television, and it had a radio built into it, and it was battery operated. It also had a flashlight on it. And it also had this wind-up thing where you could charge the battery, right? So I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, you know, for $5, this is really cool. Except there's just one problem. The television set inside this thing was designed to receive broadcasts from analog frequencies, from frequencies that are no longer being broadcasted. So this television set inside this little radio contraption was a receiver, but the problem was no one's broadcasting on those frequencies anymore, so the television's not going to work. Now, the NOAA weather radio that's built into this thing, it receives 162.55 megahertz, 162.45 megahertz, 162.35 megahertz. There's a range on that spectrum that is still being broadcast by the National Weather Service, so the radio would work. Now, I will tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, that frequency is everything, all right? And you cannot tell me that all of these things that they're planning to do can be accomplished by one single signal. For those of you who have EMF detectors that are in my audience, and I'm talking about the ones that have different ranges. I'm talking about the ones that go from 800 megahertz all the way up to 100 gigahertz. If you have that kind of equipment, that means you've invested about, I don't know, $150,000 in your test kit. But frequency is everything, folks. Now, I will tell you that the signals that are designed to activate this so-called this lipid payload stuff, they have these technologies that can do things and activate things, but they're only operational in a very tightly controlled, sophisticated environment that is very expensive to maintain and operate. They do not have the ability to pulse a signal from a tower to go through your window and your bedroom wall to turn your bloodstream into a chupacabra factory, okay? That is absolute nonsense. I will tell you what they do have. They do have the ability, and this is factual. This is factual, folks. They do have the ability, using specific frequencies, and believe me, specific frequencies don't all come from different antennas. Each antenna is uniquely designed to broadcast at a unique frequency. You cannot get a standard cell tower to produce a millimeter wave frequency transmission signal that is specific enough to do what they want to do, to go through all your walls and windows and roof and car doors. However, they can create antennas built into your flat panel televisions, antennas made out of graphene that are laid into wallpaper, and all kinds of different transmission systems with different frequencies and power levels. But that, folks, is not what they're testing today. They're testing the link-up mechanism, okay? From these towers will come signals that is designed, and by the way, this is the first test. There'll be more. This first test is designed to make sure they can find every device everywhere at once. Just said, today's test is not about activating graphene from your Starbucks coffee that you just drank this morning. And by the way, they couldn't put enough graphene in a vaccine to hurt a fly, all right? So, you know, the vaccine is not the source of the graphene, folks. They couldn't put enough graphene in you from a vaccine to hurt a fly, all right? I won't take a vaccine because of other reasons. But the way graphene gets into your body ain't going to be from a shot. It's going to be from your water or your food, your chocolate or your coffee. And see, the circus class won't tell you about this. They won't tell you that Bill Gates' dad bankrolled Starbucks. They won't talk. Instead of being in control so you won't be afraid. Do you understand what I just said? In the name of Jesus Christ, will you listen to me and stop listening to these bow-tied bonehead bastards that literally lead you astray, freak you out, and make you curl up in a ball and suck your thumb because you feel helpless. I'm here to empower you and to expose these demons and to keep your head level so you can think. For crying out loud, folks, just open your eyes, all right? So I've been talking for years about how they have the ability to broadcast at a frequency. I have been talking about for years about the dangers of 60 gigahertz WiGig home Wi-Fi, virtual reality headsets, and other types of connectivity using the oxygen molecule absorption frequency band. Let me repeat that. They have technology that is being rolled out, not yet, it's still not in your house yet, but it's a new technology called WiGig that's going to replace Wi-Fi. Right now we're dealing with Wi-Fi 6. There's a new type of Wi-Fi that's coming that they're still working on. It's called WiGig. It's going to broadcast at 60 gigahertz instead of the current Wi-Fi systems that broadcast at 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, or the Wi-Fi 6 systems that broadcast at 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, and 6 gigahertz, which, by the way, 6 gigahertz is the absorption spectrum of iodine molecules, which I've talked about. All designed to harm your health, make you iodine deficient. The microwave frequency, the dielectric loss of water begins at 2.4 gigahertz. It causes the water molecules to rotate on their axis, but the microwave bombardment from these systems, your iron reserves into your bone marrow, making you anemic, okay? But I've talked about all this stuff. There's so many angles to this weaponry. They've got 1.8 gigahertz systems that can affect your nervous system. All the towers are capable of broadcasting in these frequency ranges, except for the millimeter wave frequencies that don't penetrate walls or windows or tree leaves. They need to get up close and personal. Those systems are already being rolled out into your homes, in your televisions, and your smart appliances. I've seen sleep monitors and even alarm clocks that have 60 gigahertz transmitters in them. And I will tell you that all of the school Wi-Fi systems have been upgraded to include those chips. And I've talked about that as well. Today is not going to unleash a zombie apocalypse, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a test of the emergency broadcast system and a test of your faculties not to get thrown into a panic by controlled opposition bow tie bozos. Okay? I want you to do me a favor. If you have any type of detector that shows frequencies, it would be a good idea for you in about, I don't know, half hour or so to get it ready and start filming the frequency bands that you see broadcast on. Some of the EMF detectors will tell you, they'll flash the frequency band and the power level, and then they'll move on to the next bar and the next frequency signal it picks up. And those detectors are relatively inexpensive. A couple $100 you can get your hands on one of those. My point is, today is not the end of the world. Today is just another example of how they use these controlled opposition agents to spin your head in circles, to freak you out, to make you talk about stuff that makes people think you're nuts, and to discredit everything that you try to convey to people, while at the same time putting you in a panic so you can't think straight and figure things out. Let me explain the long-term plan, folks. This is just a test. Between the 700 megahertz systems they've installed on these cell towers, they can now find and ring your cell phone 4 stories underground in a parking structure. They have, since the COVID lockdowns, installed on these cell towers extremely powerful transmission systems that can find and send a signal to a cell phone just about anywhere. I mean, folks, I've put my phone in these steel safes and they still ring, okay? My point is what's coming off these towers is extremely penetrating. But remember, frequency is everything. 700 megahertz doesn't activate some nanolipid particle that's floating around on some supposed imaginary raft in your bloodstream, all right? You need to understand that things are very specific. You can't take, all right, I'll give you a crude example. Remember those old compact fluorescent lights that they hang on the ceiling in the garage and in the shop and everything else? They have this little rectangular black square that's loaded with oil and coils. It's called a ballast, right? Well, these old compact fluorescent lights put out, the really old ones put out different radio waves, and some of them even put out X-rays, for crying out loud. That's why they used to have to put, shielding on them. But if you took an AM radio and put it up next to the ballast, it would put out all kinds of interference. It would phase out the radio signal because they broadcast. All right? Well, different types of frequencies come from different types of sources. There's a difference between amplitude modulation and frequency modulation when it comes to AM and FM signals. Then you have the very high frequency transmissions and the ultra high frequency transmissions from the old analog television broadcasting systems. And now we have these digital signals that are being broadcast now, since Obama did away with and phased out the analog signals so that they could fake green screen everything on the news now. My point is that frequency is everything, and what is being fired up today is not the frequencies that are going to kill you, is not the frequencies that are going to cause illness. It's not the frequencies that are going to cause people to walk around and turn into walking zombies and cannibals, okay? Today is just a test, ladies and gentlemen. A test of the emergency broadcast system, designed to make sure that they can ping and locate and communicate with, and most importantly, listen to this, instruct any cell phone anywhere to do what it's being asked to do. Now, in this case, they're going to instruct your phone to display a message and to play a message. You need to understand that this is about finding the phones and the monitors on the televisions, and they're ordering these things to perform a task. Now, this is very important because this is the beginning of the phasing in of the agendas. Because what they need to be able to do is, first of all, they need to be able to find your phone. And that's what they've done during the COVID lockdown. They went to 700 megahertz transmission antennas on these towers that can now find your phone, in some cases inside a cheap Faraday cage, whereas before they would not be able to locate them. Now they can. And if they can locate the phone, and if the phones are sophisticated enough now, which they are, if you haven't noticed, the batteries are giant. These things are a lot bigger than they used to be because they're a lot more sophisticated. Now that they've gotten the ability to find the phones, they can remotely tell them what to do. These sophisticated phones now are capable of broadcasting on certain frequencies. If you have a 5G phone, depending upon whether it's 5G evolution or 5G, it may have the frequencies, it may have the chips to have the ability to create emissions in the frequency bands that can harm you. But today is not about turning those on. Today is all about testing to see if they can find and control the phones remotely, and the Wi-Fi access points remotely, and the television stations remotely, which I'm sure will go off without a hitch, and there'll be more tests after this. You need to understand that at some point in the future, after you've consumed enough graphene in your coffee, or in your chocolate, or even in the water supply, when you're up close and personal with the devices, these weaponized systems that you've brought into your homes. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. Anything with Bluetooth connectivity can be remotely controlled. It can be found and hacked and remotely controlled to do whatever it's being told to do, provided it's sophisticated enough. Most electronics are sophisticated enough these days to broadcast, because why? Well, if they're communicating with your home Wi-Fi system, they're transmitting. The question is, what frequencies are they transmitting on? You don't know. Unless you have the proper equipment, unless you have spectrum analyzers, you can't tell what frequencies are being emitted. And by and large, most of the people don't even understand the difference, and it's not their fault, it's complex. You need to understand that at some point in the future, they're going to be able to turn your system on that you brought into your house, whether it be your gaming console with your VR headset, with your AirPods, or your Bluetooth-enabled blender, for crying out loud. That thing will be able to lock onto you based on your smart wearables, whether it's a watch or AirPods or a wireless headset, and it'll be able to beamform a frequency that can hurt you. But that's not what they're doing today, folks. The groundwork for such a majestic operation of the devil takes a lot of dry runs, a lot of practice, and a lot of rehearsal. They need you to believe in the narratives first. That is why they have to have the broadcast system in place to promote the narrative with their operation, that you will believe they tell you instead of what is being done to you. How to protect yourself from what is coming does not involve you crawling up and moving into a cave. It involves you, number one, being aware when you're being beamformed. If you are in a situation where you feel like you can't breathe, and I talked to somebody the other day, and they were at a gym working out, and all of a sudden they couldn't catch their breath. Fortunately, this person knew to get out of there. Now, unfortunately, this person was wearing AirPods and didn't think to take them off initially, but they do have the ability to lock onto you. If you got something here, it's going to put a bullseye here. If you're in public, you should probably carry around a compact disc or something maybe to this size so you can block it and deflect the signal back. Because the signals that can take your breath away, the signals that can make you feel faint and dizzy and pass out, don't penetrate the this dielectric surface. This scrambles the signal and reflects it back. This is called a laser disc, folks. It's a large one. I keep it in my car. Because if I'm getting beamformed, I go like this. And I can drive and I can still see. You see what I'm doing? I can still see through this. I can still breathe through it. You can carry a smaller version with you, a CD, compact disc, a CD-ROM. My point is there's the reason I'm doing this broadcast is to kind of quell the fear that's out there because of all the lies that are in circulation right now. And, you know, these guys are all mixing. They're mixing everything up. You know, it's like, okay, I know some of you who I know pretty well. You're very particular. You like a certain type of drink. You know, you like your Clase Azul tequila, okay? You like to sip on that, right? You like to sit down, have a cigar, and have some Clase Azul. And I can't say that I can blame you because that's some high-class stuff, right? But when you give this person a bunch of Jose Cuervo and Rodrigo and Bacardi and Bartles and James and dump that all into a glass and serve it to him, he's going to puke. Because that's what's being done to us. They're mixing everything up. They're mixing up high-quality information, and it's making the contents of a septic tank for your consumption. Jesus is Lord, ladies and gentlemen. He's the source of truth. The deniers of Jesus Christ will never elevate the name of Jesus because they can't. And they will never be able to break through the power of his Holy Spirit's ability to unlock minds through the wisdom that comes from above. See, they want you in a perpetual state of fear, okay? So that you can't think straight, so you can't figure out a way. They want you helpless. That's why they tell you, oh, they can get you from these satellites. Oh, that's a whole nother bunch of nonsense, folks. There are no satellites. They got balloons up there floating around with solar panels on them. They don't have the ability. There are no space weapons, folks. Everything is land-based. While they got you worried about these satellites, you brought stuff into your house that's going to get you from your nightstand. Do you understand me? This is what I'm talking about. This is what is wrong with all of these controlled opposition agents that are freaking you out. Yeah, they have the ability to fly an airplane around or a helicopter around and hit you with a laser beam and burn up your house. They have the ability to use directed energy weapons from the top of a mountain and burn up or blow things up. They have 60 gigahertz beam forming systems. Get out of here with that stupid piece of crap, will you? Gosh darn it. So they have all these technological systems that are weapons that can burn things up, blow things up, beamform, whatever. But they don't come from space, folks. They're terrestrial. And the message is that by and large, although we can't protect ourselves from everything, we certainly can in our homes. We certainly can in our businesses. We certainly can in our cars. We certainly can when we're walking around in the street. We don't have to have wearables on us that track us and put a bullseye on us. We don't have to wear AirPods or a smartwatch or this Bluetooth device that's, we don't have to put AirTags on us. Why do we give them a target? Back in the day when my son played Little League, it was great. I had this coach, a Little League coach that was his coach, wonderful guy named Justin. I sure miss him. He's a great guy, great coach, good family man, and a good guy. I think he was from like Arkansas or Mississippi or something. Funny guy, but he always used to say, talk to the catcher and say, hey, give him a good target. Give him a good target so he can hit the target, with the accent, that good son. And then my son was a catcher for a while. And he's like, hey, son, give him a good target. Will you give him a good target? Ladies and gentlemen, stop giving them a good target. Did you hear what I just said? Stop giving these people a good target. Don't make yourself a target. Don't give them something to triangulate onto. Don't walk around like the Running Man with all these Wi-Fi enabled devices all over your body. Today is going to be a test of the emergency broadcast system. Nothing more, nothing less. just so they can find and instruct and activate every single communication device on the face of the continental United States, so they can broadcast a narrative similar to what they did on 9/11, when all the television stations ran the same footage at the same time, because it was all a bunch of CGI crap that they force-fed everybody. All the same narrative, all the same talking points, all the same timeline, all the same time frame, all the same agenda. In the future, when they announce the alien virus or the alien invasion or the Ebola outbreak or the Marburg outbreak or the COVID-23 outbreak or whatever they, the nuclear attack or whatever they're going to use the emergency alert system for, they're going to use it. But today is not the day they're going to hurt you with it, ladies and gentlemen. And don't get me wrong, these towers are weapons. I've said that from day one. But guess what, folks? Do you know how you can keep these towers from hurting you? Number one, you can try to stay away from them by not living in an area where they can bounce signals all over these buildings in these big cities. I'd get out of these huge cities if you could. I mean, some of these cities, you got these walls of skyscrapers. You can't escape the bouncing around. But don't give them a target. Everybody, like this guy right here, AirPods, sunglasses, and a mask on, walking with a cell phone in his hand. That guy's a triple target. Number one, it shows he's compliant. There's another bunch of people with masks and AirPods and sunglasses. A beautiful sunny morning, Southern California, about 72 degrees. Beautiful sunny blue sky. A little bit of smog from the oxides of nitrogen because the sun's a little down in the south as it heads south for the winter. But my point is everybody's giving them a target. You need to understand, if you don't give them a target, they can't get you. All right? Now, you don't need to be consuming coffee that's pre-ground. All right? Because they can put graphene in the coffee. Graphene is black. They got you drinking black water now. I mean, I've seen these black waters. The chocolate. Got to be careful where the chocolate's coming from. I wouldn't buy any domestic chocolate. I'd probably be buying stuff from small batch, organic. Don't be eating any high production chocolate, okay? They can put graphene in the coffee. They can put graphene in the chocolate. What other dark things do you think they can put graphene in, right? Well, they can actually put graphene in your water. As a matter of fact, the municipal reverse osmosis systems utilize graphene as part of the filtration components. Graphene, if you go to the Fullerton Informer, there's an article I did that has garnered special attention, and it's just Google the Fullerton Informer black goo black cube, and just look at that really brief article outlining how they can induce hemorrhagic symptoms, not by some fake virus, but by electromagnetic interaction with certain types of compounds. You need to not put these compounds in your bodies, okay? And these guys are running around telling you it's the vaccines. The vaccines are not the source of the graphene, folks. I don't care what they say is in those things. You'll never know what's in those things, nor should you worry about what's in those things, because you should never take them. However, I will tell you that the source of what you have to worry about is going to come from the most innocuous things that you don't think about, that they're not telling you about. And that is why I've done this broadcast today, so that you can think straight, think critically, and have an analytical perspective as you sort out the geopolitical, sociological, physiological, psychological, and physical plane that we must traverse on a daily basis to go about our lives and conduct our business and raise our families and do what is necessary for the furtherance of the kingdom of God, for the glory and honor of his son, Jesus Christ. And we can't do that curled up in a ball in the fetal position, calling for our blankie as we insert our thumb in our mouth because we feel so hopeless and so scared because we've never been given any solution by a bunch of bow-tied bimbos and boneheads. Okay? Because that's what they want. They want you scared and confused. Because after all, that's the best way to attack any group of anything. Scared and confused and unorganized. That's why they put out so much disinformation. They have so many disinformation agents promoting the same crap, right? I don't care whether it's the snake venom nonsense or this, I mean, it goes on and on, folks. I mean, there's so many flavors of fraud, whether it's, like I said, when I was younger and, it was the communists or the John Birch Society or the conservatives or the Republicans or the libertarians or, this or that or the other. And you want to know something, folks? They're all working for the same agendas. At the end of the day, the Republicans are murdering people overseas with their wars, and the Democrats are murdering children at home with the abortion. But at the end of the day, the net body count is the same. They get the same amount of deaths, whether they're domestic or whether they're foreign. The bottom line is it doesn't matter what flavor you follow. If you suck on that popsicle long enough, you're going to hit that wood stick. If you're not careful, they're going to shove it where the sun don't shine, and that's not going to be fun. Ladies and gentlemen, please, in the name of Jesus Christ, please find time every day to be in the New Testament and listen to what Jesus said. Read the red letters if you can of the gospel. Understand who he was, what he did, and understand the power he has given us. It's unbelievable the amount of power he's given us. And the most important aspect of having access to that power is not having fear, but having a sound mind. What do these controlled opposition agents do? They make everybody afraid and confuse them and don't give them any hope. They don't give them any direction. They don't give them any solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you how to make your house really safe. Do not have any wireless connectivity, appliances, or devices in your home. Do not have anything that is able to make a complete target of your eyes, ears, nose, or mouth, or your body in your house. That means if you're not using your cell phone, shut it off. Put it away. Do not use wireless gaming consoles, wireless headsets, wireless VR headsets, wireless ding-dong openers. I don't care. Folks, you sickos that promote all this wireless crap, like my neighbor who's got wireless everything. He's probably got repeaters in his underwear, for crying out loud. These guys that are so drunk on all this technology. Don't give them a target, folks. And don't give them easy access to hurt you with a beamforming signal that they can remote control from a cell tower. Your odds of being impacted by weaponry is directly proportionate to your knowledge of and understanding of the weaponry's appearance, function, and location. You need to be aware of your surroundings, especially in your home. You need to understand that all this stuff that's being rolled out in the stores is not just for your comfort and convenience. They have an ulterior motive with all of this technology, folks. Today will be just another test. There'll be more to come. There'll be more information about these tests that'll be forthcoming. I'm going to sign off now because we're getting close to when the test is about to begin. Nothing's going to happen to you if your phone's on right now, folks. They're not going to zap you, all right? They do have the ability going forward once they go into the next several phases of this to harm you. So let this be a warning for you to understand The different frequencies have different abilities to do different things. And that requires a sophisticated network that has to be vetted and tested, and all the kinks have to be worked out before they go live. This is the first test. Live, ladies and gentlemen. Not yet. All right. So I'm going to sign off now. I think we've gone long on this one. This was a big deal today. We're getting close to the time when they're going to run the test. For those of you who have EM detectors, wherever you are, once this test goes on, for I think it's 8 minutes, they're going to run it. If you could film the frequencies and the power levels that you're picking up where you live, just put it on a video camera, your phone, record it, however you want to do it, but try to record the emissions, okay? This is very important that you try to record the emissions, all right? And let's see what frequency bands you can pick up. Unfortunately, the worst ones are very difficult to detect unless you have sophisticated equipment. But it will be interesting to see whether they're going to be broadcasting on the neurological impact frequencies, the Project Bizarre frequencies, if you will, because they can, from a range of, I think these towers have a range of anywhere from, I think, 600 megahertz all the way up to, I think, about 40 gigahertz, all right? The 60 gigahertz frequency band requires a very specific antenna, and the signal is very easy to block. So I think that's the range they're going to operate in. 18 and 28 gigahertz, I think, are the ones they may be trying. Unfortunately, it's not easy to test for those frequencies with conventional, cheap handheld equipment. But nonetheless, we will discuss the impact of those different frequencies and the absorption spectrum of graphene, as well as chitin, that is the exoskeleton component in the insects, and that's why they're trying to get you to eat bugs, as well as how they can induce a phenomenon called a nanoblender with certain frequencies, acting upon certain chemical compounds depending upon their configuration. That'll be the subject of different discussions, but today is not the day that people are going to start hemorrhaging and eating each other. But there will come a time when that will happen. And it won't be from a virus, folks. It'll be from a signal. All right. This is your host, Joe Imbriano. I'm going to wrap this up. This has been another broadcast of the Fullerton Informer, P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. On the web at thefullertoninformer.com, WiFiDangers.com, VaxDangers.com, CellTowerDangers.com. And on it goes, folks. Please take care. Please keep your eyes open. Don't be anybody's fool. Put Jesus Christ first and foremost in your life. Run everything through the filter of how he would see things and have you do things, folks. And please pray for his wisdom and his protection and his courage that is freely available through a relationship with him and as is given by the Holy Spirit. Take care. God bless.